Hey guys, welcome to Ollie Talks Airsoft. I'm Ollie. Today I thought I'd do a full A to Z guide of all of the different terminology, and this was kind of at the request of one of my subscribers who wanted to know a bit more about how to get into Airsoft, and I wanted to make some videos. Just to let you know, I've been playing Airsoft myself for over 20 years. I got into it when I was sort of 13, got my first proper AEG, and started getting into proper games when I was about 15 or 16. This isn't going to be the video all about how to get into it for the first time. That video's to come. This video is all about the terminology, so you can actually understand what people are talking about on the actual Airsoft battlefield. So, it's going to be quite a long video. Some of these things are going to be really obvious, but some of them aren't. And let's just get on with it. So, right, first thing, 0.2, 0.25, 0.3. What are people talking about? That's BB weight. Okay. 6mm. That's the size of the BB that people are shooting. 203. A 203 is a grenade launcher. So rather than a handheld grenade, it's the actual launcher. You'll get two kinds. You'll get moss carts, which I will cover under M, and you'll also get a tag, which I'll cover under T. But they all get fired out of one of the a 203 or an M203. AEG, that's automatic electric gun. This is the most common type of gun in Airsoft. This is what you'll probably get if you get a rental. Airsoft, that's the sport. It specifically refers to shooting 6mm plastic BBs. If you're in America, they refer to BB guns as the 4.5mm steel is a BB gun in America. In the UK, an airsoft gun and a BB gun are sort of interchangeable terms, but in order to be accurate, it's airsoft. That specifically refers to 6mm plastic BBs. Anti-fog. This is something that everyone, pretty much, if you use perspex or ballistic lenses, you'll probably use either anti-fog spray or anti-fog wipes. AK, the second most common gun on the battlefield, you've probably seen them. AO, area of operation, that's the field that you're playing at. Auto, this usually refers to full auto fire, so that's when you pull the trigger, more than one BB is going to come out. Bang. So a bang can refer to a grenade, either that a pyrotechnic, sort of a hot flash usually. Bang rule, that's something they tend to have in America. It's where if you think you're too close to someone, you can point your gun at them and say bang. Not really a lot of places that do that in the UK. BB stands for ball bullet or ball bearing. That's what we shoot. BDU, that's battle dress uniform. So that's basically whatever you're wearing. But it usually refers to if you're doing like an impression. So if you're doing a sort of a UK SAS loadout or something like that, you would use that. BFG, so not from Doom. This stands for blank firing grenade. So these are reusable grenades. They will either be timed or impact. They can be quite expensive, so if someone says that they've lost their BFG, they're talking about their grenade. Black gas, this is the most high-powered gas that you can get for gas blowback replicas or gas non-blowback replicas as well. Blank, so blanks tend to be in the form of 209 primers or 9mm. They go in BFGs. Blowback, that's what the act of the slide cycling on a pistol, or if you've got a rifle, then it's the bolt cycling on that. That's the blowback. The breach is just normally where you would reach into your gun to adjust the hop up. So on a real gun, it's where the shells come out and the bullets kind of go in. It can also be a term for if you're going to breach a door, that means that you're going to aggressively go through that door. Bucking. Bucking is basically a nub. and it puts pressure on your hop up. A bump helmet. So this is a lighter helmet, unlike a ballistic helmet, that you can basically attach either a torch or some night vision or something to. Burst. So burst, it usually refers to fire. It's probably something that the marshals will say to you. If you're holding down the trigger on full auto, they'll say burst fire, and it means just short bursts, control, basically is what they're saying. Camo. So this comes in so many different kinds: DPM, MTP, AUR1, Cryptech. There's so many different terms that if you don't understand what the acronym is, it's probably some sort of camo. Next one, camp or camper. This refers to someone that tends to stay in one place on the airsoft field. So kind of snipers, they kind of tend to be doing that. But you'll also get people doing it in CQB, where they may go into a room and hide in a corner, and we call that camping. Cant, not can't, cant. This is where you tilt the rifle slightly, and because of the hop up, putting backspin on the BBs, it means that you can actually put BBs sort of round a corner, and you can also help to mitigate wind as well by canting your rifle. Next one, clear. So once you've gone into a room and you believe that you've shot everyone in that room, you're probably going to shout clear, or you might hear someone else shout clear from a room. That means that, as far as they're concerned, there's no one left in it. Ceasefire. This is a really important one. It's pretty universal across every site that you're going to go to. Ceasefire means stop shooting now. It usually comes with each site. The marshals will instruct you what to do, but it usually comes with the instruction of take the mag out of your gun, put it on the floor. Cock. So to cock your gun is to chamber the first round. So to get the first BB into the chamber so the gun is ready to fire. Crossfire. This can be two things. Someone can be referring to the optic that they've got on their gun. It's a little red dot sight, or Vortex do a range of crossfire sights. It can also be when you're shooting across. So if you've got teammates either side of a street and someone's in the middle, they're caught in the crossfire. Chest rig. This is, so behind me I've got, you probably can't see on the wall, but there's two plate carriers. A chest rig is a stripped down version which just allows you to carry some mags, and it will usually have a couple of straps. Chrono. This is short for chronograph. At the start of the day, you will have to chrono your guns, and they will either pass or fail. In order to pass, you have to be within the site limits. Anyone over will fail. That means that you can't use that gun for the day if you fail the chrono. So it's quite a big thing, and it always happens at the start of the day, and it can happen throughout the day as well. So you can get spot tested by marshals. CO2, this is a more powerful version of gas. It's actually a bit more powerful than black gas as well. However, only use CO2 in guns that are designed for use with CO2, because it can damage anything that's not designed for it. You can get CO2 mags for Glocks and high cappers, and you don't want to put them in the TM. It will just blow it apart. Covering fire, cover me. When you're in a game, someone might shout, cover me. They're not talking about what you think. What they're saying is, pop out, shoot at anything that moves or anything that doesn't. Get some covering fire down. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get the enemy's head down so that they can do something, probably try and move up. CQB, CQC. Close quarters battle, close quarters combat. So that refers to close range engagements. Deans. Deans is a type of attachment for AEGs. So for your automatic electric gun, you will either have a Tamiya or a Deans connector, and that's how your battery connects. Degrees. So degrees is to do with the hardness of the hop-up rubber. So it tends to be, if you're shooting lighter weight ammo, a lower FPS, you would go for a lower degree, like for example a 50 degree. If you're shooting at UK FPS, about 350, then most people would probably run a 60 degree bucking, or sorry, 60 degree rubber. The bucking is the nub. And if you're running a sniper, you might be running something like a 70 or 80 degree. DMR, that stands for Designated Marksman's Rifle. So it's less powerful than a bolt-action sniper rifle, but more powerful than your standard AEG. It can be powered by many different things, usually gas or electric though. Dry fire. Dry fire is when there is no magazine in the gun and you pull the trigger on an electric gun, or in a gas gun, it's where there is gas in the magazine but there are no BBs and you're pulling the trigger just to recreate the cycling and the slide. DSG. DSG is dual sector gear. This is for high speed AEG builds. DTNVG is dual tube night vision goggles. If you've got them, then well done, they're very expensive. Dump pouch. Dump pouch is a pouch that people normally have on their belt, and it's for disposing of used magazines, but people often chuck water bottles or various other things in there. EBB, electric blowback. So this is where you've got an AEG gun, but it can also be an EBB, so it's also a blowback gun. EKIA, enemy killed in the area. 1 EKIA, I've killed one person. ENDEX, end of exercise. That's the end of the day, go home. iPro, that's basically short for eye protection. Face Pro, that's face protection, so usually it refers to covering your mouth. Full face protection, that basically means you've got to have your whole face covered. So that would ultimately, full face protection is your eye pro and your face pro, so slightly different. Flank, that's where you try and move around the side or around the back of the enemy team to gain an advantage. FOB, that's your forward operating base. So people might say that they've set up at the FOB, so that's normally not your main safe zone. It will be somewhere further out. It will not be a safe zone, more than likely. So you will need to keep your goggles on in there at all times, but it will be somewhere that you can normally respawn. FPS. FPS is your feet per second. Airsofters get really het up about feet per second because it is important, but FPS does not equal range and it does not equal accuracy either, so it's very important to remember that. The FPS limits in the UK are about 1.2 joules, which equates to about 350 FPS with a 0.2 gram BB, 500 FPS for a sniper rifle. Friendly, that's someone on your team, that's a teammate. Friendly fire, otherwise known as blue on blue, that's where you're shooting your own team. Usually not on purpose, normally by accident. G36, that's a really common gun that you'll see on the battlefield. Game on, game over. These are calls throughout the day that you'll hear from the marshals, and on most sites they'll ask you to repeat the call. So if you hear game on, shout game on. When you hear game over, shout game over. It's important to be listening out for this because a lot of games that I've been to, there's someone wandering around and they miss their entire lunch break because they're still sat in a bush. So repeating that call is quite important. Gas, that's one of the ways of powering your gun. If you've got a gas gun, you'll need to use either green gas, red gas, black gas, or CO2 as your propulsion method. A gate, so this is something that AEG users will use. It's like a gate titan is what they normally refer to. It's a MOSFET. It controls your trigger. It means that you can get lighter trigger pulls and you can normally program. So instead of, for example, having safe, semi and full auto, you could have safe, semi and 3-round burst. Pretty cool. GBB, that's gas blowback. So that normally refers to a pistol. GBBR is a gas blowback rifle. Gear is all of your stuff. It can refer to not only the things that you're wearing, but also the things that you're carrying as well. Glock, that's one of the most common pistols that you're going to see out there. Grenade, so these can either be blank firing grenades, as we covered earlier, or they can be pyro or paper pyro. So you can either have like a flashbang stick, or you can have maybe a pea grenade or something like that. Grenade launcher, that's a bit like the M203. So that's where you're going to be launching a grenade or firing a moss-cart at a distance. Green gas. This is the most common kind of gas that you're going to put in any airsoft gun. You can also get 144A, which I probably should have put at the start. That's a weaker gas. If you've got plastic slided pistols, they normally recommend using that kind of gas. Gucci doesn't just mean it's all good. It means that someone spent a lot of money on their gear. So often you'll see someone in Gucci gear, and it might be Cry Precision and Blue Force gear and all this other stuff that's not entirely necessary for running around in the woods. A ghillie suit. This is a sniper suit. It's designed to break up a sniper's outline. You can also get leaf suits as well. Next up, high cap. This refers to the capacity of your magazine. So a high cap magazine is going to be 200, 300, 400, 500 BBs in the mag. High capper. This is the other main kind of pistol that people use. Hit. Hit! That's what you shout when you get hit. HPA, high pressure air. This was kind of where airsoft started and now has kind of come full circle back to. It does mean that you'll be running around with an air tank attached to you and a cable. For some people, they don't mind. You can get great trigger responses and stuff, but you've still got to have that tank attached to you. Hop rubber. So the hop rubber is what actually allows you to put backspin on the BB, and that allows you to get much better range and much better accuracy. Hop up. So hop up is it's the act of putting the backspin on the BB. Holster, that's normally where you put your pistol or your sidearm. A hollow sight or a holographic sight is basically a red dot sight. A hot gun. So if someone goes to the chronograph and they come back and they say they've got a hot gun or their gun is hot, it means they failed the chronograph and their gun is shooting too powerfully for that particular sight, and they won't be able to use it unless they can downgrade it. Impact grenade. So this is a grenade that when you throw it, as soon as it hits a hard surface, it will explode on impact. IPSC. IPSC, I can't remember what it actually stands for, but it's like International Practical Shooting Corporation or something like that. It's basically target shooting. This is probably the most accessible kind of airsoft. You're not being shot back at. Anyone can do it. It's a great thing for if you're disabled and you can see and you've got control of your motor functions. Then you can do it, and you won't be at any disadvantage compared to a completely able-bodied person. It's really, really accessible. If you're looking to get into shooting it and you're worried about being shot back at and you want to get familiar with the guns, IPSC might be the way forward. IR stands for infrared. This usually refers to a laser or a light, but it's one that you can only see using night vision goggles. A jam is a break. So if something's jammed, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It means something has got caught up in the gun. Joules. So joules is the conversion of mass times speed, I think. Not acceleration, I'm pretty sure it's speed. And it will give you a joule limit. I think it's about 1.2 in the UK is the standard. Joule creep. This is something that you only get with a gas gun, and it's where, because of the way that the BB is being propelled, I should do a full video on joule creep. Because of the way the BB is being propelled, if you were to put a 0.2 gram BB in an AEG shooting at 350 FPS, and then you swap that for a 0.4 gram, then you'll see the FPS drop significantly. If you do the same on a gas gun, the actual drop in FPS will be less. So that's joule creep. Kentucky windage. That's basically if someone is running, or you've got, if someone's running across in front of you, or for example, you've got a bit of wind coming, then you're not actually going to aim at your target. You're going to aim where they're going to be, or you're going to aim next to them. Guessing your shot is basically Kentucky windage. Where are we? Key mod. So this was an attachment method for basically putting grips, lights, lasers, anything like that onto your gun. A kill, that's what happens when you shoot someone or stab someone or you throw a grenade and it explodes near them. Kill radius, that's what you will get from a grenade. Each site will have their own, and they'll have their own rules surrounding the kill radius, so listen to your marshal at the start of the day. A knife kill. So a knife kill is where you've got a rubber knife. Never, ever, ever, ever take a live blade out onto an airsoft field. Honestly, just do not do it. Big no, no, no. Like, you'll probably get chucked off the site and asked never to return again. So a knife kill refers to a plastic, usually bendy knife, and it's where you've snuck up and you've tagged someone with that knife, and the etiquette is don't shout hit. They've snuck up on you and killed you fair and square. Naff off. Go back and respawn. Kydex. It's a term that you don't really hear outside of airsoft or real steel shooting. Kydex is it's basically a strong plastic that like holsters and things like that will be made from. Leading your target. So again, it refers to like Kentucky windage. If someone's running across, you're going to shoot in front, you're going to lead your target. If you're shooting and you keep missing and the guy next to you says, lead your target, they're talking about shooting in front of your target. A lemon. I think we've all had a lemon before. Same as with cars, it's where it's just not very good out of the box. Lives. So lives are what you'll be given at the start of the day or at the start of each game. Listen to the marshal. There may be a different amount of lives in different games, and sometimes they might change it throughout the game in order to basically give you a better experience and mean that you enjoy your day more. So, lives. LiPo or LiFi, these are higher discharge batteries that you can get. They tend to be a lot smaller than the old NiCad batteries, and they will last a bit longer. I think, LiPos have a tendency to catch fire if they're not charged correctly, so I think LiFis are slightly better. Loadout, that's what gear you're deciding to wear and the guns that you're deciding to run on that particular day. Low cap. Low cap tends to refer to real cap, and it's both of those terms refer to how many BBs are in your magazine. A real M4 has a 30 round magazine. If you've got a 50, 60 round mag, then it's low, but it's not really a low cap. A low cap would be 30. M4, the most common rifle that you'll see on the battlefield. If someone's asking for a mag and you say what kind, they'll reply M4. M-lock. This is another attachment method, a bit like keymod. So again, for lights, lasers, grips, that kind of stuff. Mags, this can refer to anything that will go into the gun that holds the BBs and sometimes also your propellant. For example, like a gas mag. mAh or MAH is milliamps. That's the discharge for your NiCad battery. So if you've got a 3000 milliamp battery, it'll probably last you all day. If you've got a 1200 milliamp, you might need to take a couple of batteries out with you. Medic or corpsman. Sometimes you'll be playing medic games and you'll be required, when you get hit, you will shout hit, and then you'll shout medic, and hopefully someone from your team will come over and the site will tell you what the count is. Sometimes it's count to 5, 10, 20. You might have to count elephants, but you'll have to count and to get your teammate back in the game, or for them to get you back in the game. Mesh. People say I'm running mesh. What do they mean by that? They mean that they're running mesh goggles. Mesh goggles, instead of using a solid piece of perspex, they're actually a metal mesh with holes in. The reason that people use these is because they don't fog up. However, you can get BBs shatter and they can go into your eye. I've had it happen to me a couple of times, especially with tracer BBs. It's not very pleasant. I don't run mesh anymore. Mid-cap. This refers to kind of what I was talking about with the low caps. If you've got that 50, 60, maybe to 150 round mag, that's a mid-cap. MilSim, that stands for military simulation. That's where you're going out, usually on longer operations. They can be day, but they can be multi-day, and you'll be expected to go out. If you're just getting into airsoft, MilSim isn't something that's going to be on your list. Okay. Seriously, this phone is rubbish. Melee or melee, melee. That's like a knife kill. Molly, that's the attachment method. It basically means like weaving stuff in and out. Next up, MOSFET. That's your trigger control unit for an AEG. MOSCART. A MOSCART or a MOSCART launcher. A MOSCART launcher is basically an M203 launcher. A MOSCART it looks like a 40mm grenade, but actually it will hold somewhere between 30 and 200 BBs, and it will fire them all in kind of a shotgun effect. MP stands for machine pistol. You'll get MP5s, MP7s, MP9s. MRE, meal ready to eat. This is what people often take on a meal sim operation. They'll complain about having a really rubbish MRE. That's what they're talking about. NBB, non-blowback. It's a gas gun that doesn't, so the slide doesn't recoil on it. NIM is nickel metal hydride. Again, that's a kind of battery. NGRS is next generation recoil system. Next generation recoil shot. Something like that. I don't use them. They are excellent guns by all accounts. They're Tokyo Marui made. Go check them out. People love them. Nods. Nods are night operation devices. So like a PVS-14 kind of thing. Noob. Noob is a term that we should be getting rid of in Airsoft, to be perfectly honest. It just refers to a new player. These new players are the future of the sport. It's a bit insulting to call them noobs, but that is just the way of it at the moment. Maybe together we can change the community and stop calling them noobs and start referring to them as the future of the sport, maybe. Nub, or hot tensioner. That's what's basically going to sit on top of the hot rubber and apply enough pressure downwards so you can really flick that BB and really get some good backspin on it. Objective. Your objective is what you're going to try and do. It might be to capture a flag, or it could be to rescue a hostage. You'll have to listen to your marshals and they will tell you what your objective is. OP, overpowered. This will usually refer to a gun that is being played on the field that people consider to be overpowered, but it will have been chronoed, so it won't be a hot gun. That's quite different. So someone that's got like a 60 round per second rate of fire, people might be like, that's OP, but it's actually still within the rules of the game. Op4, opposing force, so that's the other team. Out of bounds, OB, that means that you've wandered outside of the playing area, your AO, so you need to basically figure out where you've gone out and get back in, because you shouldn't be shooting people when you're out of bounds, and they shouldn't be taking their hits if you do hit them. Overhopping. So overhopping is where you intentionally or otherwise, instead of your BB going flat, it actually starts going up, and you can overhop to the point that they just end up flying straight up into the sky. That's serious overhopping. Parlay. You don't hear this too often, and it tends to happen between more experienced players that know what's going on, where you've come across each other and there's been a misunderstanding in your confrontation. You can basically choose to parlay, reset. It's like a gentleman's agreement on the field. It doesn't involve a marshal. You could both come around a corner with pistols, put them into each other, shoot each other at point blank range, both go, you know what, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have pulled the trigger. Parlay, you can both go back 10 feet, whatever, you know, kind of, like it's a gentleman's agreement. So that's what parlay is. PEQ, P-E-Q, this is a laser box with a light. Some people will have a PEQ battery box, which is where they put the battery instead of having a laser and a light in there. Picatinny or pick rail. This is the standard 20mm rail. It's a bit like the original version of Keymod or M-Lock. Your pistol, that's your sidearm. Polymer. Polymer is what you'll... people tend not to talk about plastic stuff. They'll refer to polymer. It's a bit stronger and it sounds a bit better. Plate carrier and plates. Your plate carrier tends to only carry plastic or foam plates to give it some rigidity and to take the sting out of any BBs that might come. But predominantly, like a chest rig, it's used for carrying your mags. So guys, that took so long that my camera batteries died, so I've had to wait. So apologies if this looks a little bit different, but we'll continue the list. So we just did plate carrier and plates. Pre-firing. Pre-firing is where you suspect someone that's in a corner, say for example like a dark corner, and you go into a room and you shoot into that corner, regardless of whether someone's actually going to be there or not. It's something that it's mostly confined to the Speedsoft arena. Pre-cocking, this allows you to get a better trigger response on your AEG, and it means that instead of when you pull the trigger, the piston will come back in the cylinder and be released. Pre-cocking means that the piston is already all the way back in the cylinder, and as soon as you pull the trigger, it will release and fire the BB. Practical shooting. So practical shooting is a little bit like IPSC, although this will involve like rifles and maybe shotguns as well. So next up we have primary. So the primary is the gun that's in your hand. Some sites will have it where if you get shot on your primary weapon, you're out. Other sites will have it where if you get shot on your primary weapon, you're not out. So make sure you listen to the marshals. Push. So a push is basically move up. So if someone shouts push, that's someone giving you a polite instruction that maybe you should move up a little bit and get to the next bit of cover. PVS or PVS 14. This refers to a night vision device. Pyro. A pyro is it can either be a smoke grenade or an explosive bang. But it usually refers to a hot pyro, so something where you will either pull a ring pull or strike a fuse, and then you need to throw it within a second or so, otherwise you might get hurt. QD, that's quick detach, usually refers to like a sling or something like that. Quick draw, as you would expect, some people want to do a quick draw, be fastest on the draw, basically. Real steel. This is an airsoft term that refers to things in the actual shooting community where they use real guns. So someone might say, I've got a real steel optic. That means that the optic that or the red dot sight or whatever they're using on their gun was actually designed for a real gun rather than just an airsoft gun. Recoil, that's the feeling each time you pull the trigger. So it's the feedback that you get from the gun. Red dot, or RDS, or RMR. RMR is like a ruggedized miniature red dot. RDS is red dot sight. It's instead of having to line up your front and rear sights, you'll probably, if you've ever played any computer games, you'll be familiar. You get a dot. You should adjust your sights so that it is where you're actually shooting. That's always a good idea. Red gas, that sits somewhere in between green gas and black gas with regard to power. A little bit better in the winter. R-hop. R-hop is just another way of hopping the BB. It's still a rubber patch, it still presses down on the BB. Reenactor. This is someone that will specifically choose maybe a Vietnam loadout or a World War II loadout, for example. Remote det. A remote det is basically a small explosive device, a bit like an IED. If someone says there's a remote det down there, probably just stay away from it. Respawn, that's once you've been killed. When you start your next life, you will either go back to your respawn point, and then you will respawn back into the game as a fresh new player. Riff and if. So a riff is a real imitation firearm. So that's any airsoft gun that looks that looks like its real steel counterpart, i.e. it's black, it's got wood, something like that. If it's painted 51% or more a bright colour, then it's an IF, which is an imitation firearm. RIS, so that's a rail interface system, so that's your standard 20mm Picatinny rail. RPS and RPM, that's rounds per second or rounds per minute. Real guns tend to record rounds per minute. In Airsoft, we prefer rounds per second. Rentals. Rentals basically refers to two things. The players that turn up that rent guns, and also the guns that they are actually renting. So if someone's told to look after the rentals, it means to not only look after the people, but look after the guns as well. Okay, regulars. Regulars are people that regularly go to a site. Every site will have some regulars. If it's your first time at a site and you're nervous, you can always speak to the marshal, find out who the regulars are, and you might be able to get put on the same team as them. And that might help your nerves a little bit if you're worried. Retention. This basically refers to how tightly your magazines are held in their pouches. Rifle. That's what you'll most likely be shooting. That normally refers to either an M4, an AK, or a G36. They're the most common, really. Rubber. So rubber is the same as your hop rubber. So if someone says, I've got a torn rubber, it means that they've torn their hop-up rubber and it's not providing consistent backspin on the BB. Safe. That's one of the modes that most guns will have. It means that if you pull the trigger, nothing will happen. So if they say put your guns on safe, that means that switch it to the mode whereby even if you were to pull the trigger, it's still not going to go off. Safe zone. Safe zone is sacred. All mags must be out. All guns must be clear. It's the only place that you can ever take off your eye protection. Never take it off anywhere else for any reason whatsoever. Always be in the safe zone, but always make sure that you're, complying with the rules of the site, which will include taking your mag out and firing a couple of rounds into the ground to make sure that your breech and your barrel is clear. Secondary. Your secondary basically refers to your sidearm. So that will be a pistol, or some people would choose to take out a shotgun and use that instead. Semi-only. So semi-only refers to each time you pull the trigger, one BB will leave the barrel, no more, no less. If you've got a binary trigger, that is not semi-automatic. A binary trigger is each time you pull the trigger, a BB will be released. Each time you let go, a second BB will be released. That's not permitted on a lot of sites, and it does not count as semi-automatic. So I'm back, hopefully for the last time. So far, the camera that I'm recording with died. My phone that had the list on died, and now it won't charge. So, pen and paper. Here we go. Continuing on. Short loading. This is where you would put in less BBs in your mag than the mag can hold. So if it's a 60 round mag and you put in 30, like a real cap, that's short loading your mag. Shotty, that's a shotgun. Sidearm, that will refer to your pistol. Sign in. Signing in is what you'll do at the start of the day. It's signing your insurance waivers, things like that. Silent kill. You can be killed with a knife, like a melee kill. If that happens, the etiquette is not to shout hit. You just go back to your respawn quietly. Skirmish. Skirmish is basically, that's your weekend warriors. A skirmish is usually on a Saturday or Sunday, sometimes in an evening. It's quite informal, so you can turn up wearing jeans, t-shirt, whatever you like, and you'll be a skirmisher. Sling. This is what you use to attach normally to your primary weapon, and it means that you can go hands-free and let go and transition to either a sidearm or throw a grenade or something like that. SMG, that's short for submachine gun. So any gun that fires in real life smaller bullets, but they tend to be a little bit better for close quarters. Speed loader. Speed loaders are what you use to load your mags, unless you're using a high cap where you can often just pour them in. Speed loader will often have either a plunger or a little wheel that you'll turn, and it allows you to load your mags a bit faster. Speedsoft is really cool. It's the most competitive element of Airsoft at the moment. It usually consists of teams of 5-a-side kind of thing, competing after a flag. There's some great YouTube videos. I've played against Speedsofters. They tend to be pretty good. They are guilty of pre-firing, which I'm not a big fan of, but it's all part of the same sport, and so I encourage them. Keep going, guys. Spring, that can refer to a couple of things. People can be talking about the spring in their AEG, because ultimately it does still have a spring. Even though it's powered by electric, it's using a gearbox to pull a piston back in a cylinder and firing the air out the front. It can also refer to someone says, I'm running spring. That means that they're probably running a bolt-action sniper rifle. Smoke. Someone's not asking you for a cigarette, and don't start smoking, kids. It's all to do with a smoke grenade. Scope. That's what you look through, and it's going to give you some magnification over a red dot. Scope cam. That's all the videos that you see. Novrich and all the people like that. Scope cam man. Oh, there's loads of them out there. Sniper. That's basically someone that's got a sniper rifle. And I've got SRS here as well, which is one of the more popular platforms, but not the most popular. We'll get to that. Strobe. Sometimes people have epilepsy, so we have to be careful of that. If you do, speak to the marshal, and they'll make sure that no one's running a strobe, because people do use strobe lights as distraction devices, and they're also really hard to go up against, so you can get strobe lights. Stealth. Stealth is basically stealth kills, silent kills. And also stealth is the act of moving quietly, trying to be unseen by the enemy. Surrender. Sometimes you get the opportunity when you get the drop on an enemy to ask them to either surrender or take it. So you can do that. It's a gentleman's thing to do. People don't have to take it. If you say to someone surrender, they might try and quick draw you, so be careful. You might also hear someone shout, take it, as well. But they're on your team and they're shouting at someone 30 metres away. That's because they think that person's not taking their hits for some reason. Don't get involved in that. If you have anything like that, go speak to a marshal. You've paid your money to be there at the end of the day, and it's their job to deal with any kind of problems like that. Tag rounds. These can either be explode on impact, explode after a few seconds, but they're grenades that are fired out of an M203 grenade launcher, and these things can be devastating. Not a lot of places are going to allow the use of them. They'll be mostly restricted to milsim, so it's a bit more for the advanced players, and it's not something that's cheap to get into either. Tamiya. So you're going to have, if you have an electric gun, you'll have either large or small Tamiya, or you will have Deans. I don't really use electric guns myself. However, I do believe that most people say that Deans are better connectors. But if you do have a Tamiya gun, it could either be large or small, so make sure you know what battery connectors you need. Tango, or Tango down. Tango's target, enemy, hostile, THOT, T-H-O-T. That hostile over there. TBB, tight bore barrel. This is going to be anything tighter than your standard. People tend to drop these into their guns to improve the accuracy. Tracer. A tracer is something that goes onto the end of the gun, and it basically lights up glow-in-the-dark BBs. So each time you shoot them, what looks like a suppressor or a silencer on the gun, it will have a little sensor that detects the BB. It's almost like a little camera flash that goes off inside. It'll illuminate the glow-in-the-dark BB. You can get green and red. I think you might be able to get pink as well. Don't quote me on that. And it'll light them as they fire out the gun. Really good fun. But don't forget they do work both ways. So in pitch black, when you can't see your BBs, tracers are fantastic because you can see where they're going, but it also means that everyone knows where that shot came from. So think about it. Trigger and trigger discipline. Trigger discipline is just not having your finger constantly on the trigger. Be wary of it, especially in a safe zone. Tri-shot. Tri-shots are most shotguns which will have 3 barrels, and it means that each time you cock the gun and fire it, it'll fire 3 BBs in pretty much the same direction. They tend to be quite cheap, but they're a lot of fun to play with, especially in a CQB. If you would take one out into the woods, good luck, you will be outgunned. TM, Tokyo Marui, the godfathers of Airsoft. People rave about TM guns being very good. They are very good. You do tend to get what you pay for. I have had some TM guns break, but actually all the ones that I've kept stock and used as intended have worked flawlessly for years, decades even. Underhopping. So that's when you set your hop up and it's not actually lifting the BB enough, and so it's going down. You can also get it where you overhop too much, so you put it on so much that the BBs tend to go forward and straight down, and that is again, it's overhopping, but it looks like underhopping. So if you're not sure about that, you can always ask a more experienced player when you're shooting your gun, and they should be able to determine what's going on, and they'll help you adjust your hop up. UKARA. So UKARA is it's the UK Airsofters Registered Association, I think, or network. It basically means that people are signing up to play by the rules, and we're saying that we're not going to take any riffs or anything like that, or even ifs, out into public. VCRA was the Violent Crimes Reduction Act. It was kind of what made us do UKARA, but they're all kind of linked. That's all the kind of the legal stuff. People will talk about getting your UKARA license. I'll do a short video on that because it's a separate topic really. VSR or VSR-10 or JG Bar 10. This is the most common sniper rifle that you will find. They're pretty cheap and very effective. Walk-on. Walk-on is anyone that has just turned up to a site with their gear ready to play. Webbing. Now this could be, it's usually like a plate carrier or something like that, or a chest rig or a harness or something, but it's something that you can attach pouches and things onto. Okay, so we've now got winding. So someone might shout to you, wind your mag, especially for new players. You may not know what that means. Often, if you get a rental, you'll be given a high capacity magazine. On the bottom of the magazine, there'll be a winding wheel. If your gun is shooting and nothing's coming out of it, then you might need to wind it. So that's what someone's saying. If they're like, wind your mag, wind the bottom of the mag. When you do that, keep it upright as well, because the BBs actually feed from the bottom and back up to the top again, so they get pushed up. X300. This is basically referring to a torch, usually mounted to a pistol. I kind of struggle with why, other than YOLO. Don't forget, it's not real. It doesn't actually hurt that much. So be brave. Do the things that you would never do in real life. It's supposed to be fun. Like, go out and have some. For me, I suppose it's not as fun sitting in a corner. I'd rather risk it going down a corridor. I might get shot, or I might flank the enemy team. YOLO. Z. Z is the Tokyo Marui gas blowback system. Currently, they've got the MWS, they've got the Type 89, and I think soon to come out is going to be the AKM, which is also going to be, I believe, a Z system. So, if you have made it this far, thank you very much. It's been an ordeal to get to the end of this, but I'm glad that I've done it, and hopefully this is going to be the most comprehensive A to Z guide that you're going to get. If I'm sure I'm going to have missed off some terms. Yeah, I can't have this being a 10-hour video. So anyway, I hope you found that useful. If you have found it useful, maybe like, comment, subscribe, and there's going to be plenty more videos talking about not only, again, as I said at the start, how you actually get into Airsoft, what your first day is going to look like, and some considerations that you might have when going to your first game. So anyway, until next time, take care.